Metro on 101.9 WDET Detroit Public Radio. I'm Kerry Jr. II. Over a decade ago, the city of Detroit declared bankruptcy. And in the last year, officials reported an increase in the city's population for 2 consecutive years and a significant reduction in violent crime. Now that Mayor Mike Duggan, who led the city during that time, is stepping down, Detroit residents will elect a new mayor for the first time in 12 years. In that same time, a new generation of Detroit voters grew up. A substantial portion of Generation Z are now of voting age. According to the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement at Tufts University, Gen Z voted at a higher rate in its first midterms than millennials and Gen Xers when they were the same age. So as we approach a different kind of off-year election, when the keys to the future of Detroit are up for grabs, we explore how engaged Gen Z is with local politics. I have 3 guests with me to do that. I have Imani Foster. She's the communication lead with 482 Forward, which is a coalition that supports education in Detroit. Jonathan Shepard, a film marketing and journalism student at Wayne State University. He's also the multimedia manager for the South End, which is the school's newspaper. And I have Cedric Huff, a policy manager at the Eastside Community Network. All 3 of them are members of Gen Z. Imani, Jonathan, and Cedric, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for waking up and joining me this morning. So I want to start with you, Imani. So obviously your work with 482 Forward, which advocates for students in the city, it requires you to keep an eye on the political ecosystem here. But your civic engagement really began at an early age. What made you kind of decide to get involved with community organizing, and why was that important for you at a young age?
Sure. So I started community organizing when I was 15 years old. I was a sophomore at Renaissance High School, and I was experiencing a lot of things in my school system that I just felt like were not fair and was not a consistent experience across the state. I went long periods of time with no teacher or permanent substitutes, consistently had classes just get changed because we didn't have anyone to staff them, not enough desks, just all the things that at the #1 high school in Detroit you wouldn't really expect to experience. And at the same time, you know, there's other school districts that have state-of-the-arts locations, have more than enough teachers. Subsequently, it led me to just start getting involved in education justice work because I felt like I saw a lot of adults fighting for me, and I deserved to be a part of the fight. I felt like my voice really was central and it really mattered because I was the person that was experiencing this broken education system. And so I started working with some of my peers to build out a youth collective at 482 Forward, which at the time was only parent advocates. And we invited all of our friends and we're like, hey, this is happening to us and we can do something about it. And the first thing I did, I wrote my first op-ed at 15 years old. And it went really far, which showed me that when I tell my truth and when I'm honest and when I advocate for myself, people listen even more than when people are talking about me, about the students. And so I was able to get the youth collective started. I started some activism stuff at Renaissance High School and just have been involved ever since, and also making sure that other young people know that they are central to the fight because it's their experience that we're fighting for. Yeah,
you experienced it and you said, I want my voice to be heard so that you can shift the paradigm of what other people's experiences are after you.
Exactly.
Cedric, you're a pre-law student. But studying law and being politically and civically engaged aren't exactly the same thing. So I'm going to draw like a little bit of a line there. Tell me, for you, why your interest in politics, your work with Eastside Community Network, why get engaged civically?
Because I feel as though there's a necessity for both. Laws get enforced, but there's also work that needs to be done on a more so, how can I say, boots on the ground end, if you will. I love the idea of being a lawyer, being an attorney, and it's representing our people. However, I also want to help them, you know, and be right there with them, having my hand out, connecting with them, having their voices be heard because it influences my work or the work that I plan to do when I do become an attorney. And it's ultimately, you know, their struggles, it's what I resonate with. Their struggles are the same struggles that I went through growing up, although they may not have been as severe as, you know, equal. I still went through them at the end of the day, and hearing from them, it just fuels me.
You want to make sure you're still in touch.
Exactly.
Understand.
So that I don't get lost in the sauce, you know.
I understand, yeah. Jonathan, so you're working to provide young people, Gen Zers, more information about what's going on with politics. You work for the school's newspaper. You've also kind of restarted the podcast at the South End to talk about the current political atmosphere now. I want you to know about your impotence, your impulse, to start that. Why did you feel like this was something that needed to be done?
Yeah. So it really all started over the summer. I had the amazing opportunity to be an intern at Bridge Detroit. And in the August primary election, we had the opportunity to go to all the polls and just do some reporting, take some photos and interviews and things of that nature. And as I'm at these polls, the one thing that I'm not seeing is individuals that look my age. Now, keep in mind, it is a primary, so it is a lower voter turnout rate than what you would expect in the main election. But still, it seems like we were missing that connection. I go to Wayne State University as well. I talk to my peers. I talk to different students on a day-to-day basis. And not a lot of people even know the candidates who we have running right now. And I feel like that's an important piece that we're missing. So I restarted the South End podcast to try and establish a direct connection to both of these candidates and give our students and just the young Detroiters around the Wayne State area an opportunity to hear from the candidates directly, and just create a reaction to show up at the voting polls. It's very important that individuals on my age are part of that process of making Detroit better and be a part of the process of being part of that decision. And I just thought it was super important to get all ages and all demographics involved.
What you're highlighting here, Jonathan, sounds like somewhat of an information gap that you at least witnessed in your experience. I'm curious, Imani and from Cedric, do you feel like your peers are informed, they have the resources they need to know what's going on in local politics? Start with Imani.
Yeah, we were just talking about this outside, actually, and I was talking about how I feel like our generation, and not even just our generation, just like generally, people don't all the way understand how politics impact them. And so then there's this aversion to like, oh, I'm not political, even though, there's this saying, I've been repeating it, right? Someone told me once, if you don't do politics, politics will do you. But it is this idea that like, oh, what has the president ever done for me? What is the governor ever done? What's the mayor ever done for me? That allows people to like just put on these blinders. Of course, I think there's other factors, right? Like some people have a lot of issues that they're facing. They go to work every day. They're taking care of their family. And so these things aren't as salient, right, to them as they personally are to me, who feels like politics are everything because they govern every aspect of our life. And so I do think that there is a gap, I would say, in our education system in understanding civics at a young age and how civics impacts your life. Because when that is central, when you learn, in 10th grade civics, that what a mayor does, what a city council does, what a school board does, you start to kind of understand where you fit into it, how your experience is impacted by it. But when we bypass civics, when we have generations that kind of have just like been less and less politicized inside of the schools for many reasons, I think that civics just becomes less engaging and less personal. So then when we grow up, it continues to be that way because we were never engaged at a young age around politics.
Cedric?
Yeah, I feel there is when I talk to my peers, not even just the ones that live in Detroit, but abroad in general, when I was up in Lansing, there is an institutional distrust. I hear very often, people talk about our flawed democracy, and it disengages our folks to get out and vote, to even participate. And on that note, too, I feel as though there is a disconnect between young individuals and democracy in general. There is a lack of understanding and education around how politics work. People see things on the internet, they go on social media, and that's how they get their news. Not a lot of young people read the news. They get their news off of, something that the Washington Post or the New York Times will read. They don't even know the partisanship of the outlet that they're utilizing. So they could be reading something on CNN and it might not align with their values and their beliefs. But if the main way that folks are getting their political knowledge, or at least staying up to date, is on social media, there's gonna be a disconnect. There's gonna be, biases that they're gonna witness and see and be exposed to that's gonna influence, their relationship with politics. So I feel as though, like I said, there's not enough education surrounding policy and civics, and that needs to change. And once that does change, then we can see, you know, more young people, Gen Z, and going forward, getting interested in politics.
Yeah. And sorry, not to cut you off, but just to give an example, like even the election of Donald Trump last year, so many people are disengaged in this election because they're like, we did our part. Like we did what we were supposed to do. And still, like,
for people who didn't want to vote for Donald Trump, you're saying,
exactly.
I voted and the candidate I wanted didn't win.
Exactly. And so now look at this our lives. And so that was really hard for a lot of first-time voters that we got outside last election are now looking at us like.
Yeah, it was a lot of people's first. It was my first presidential election. And to have that be the turnout, I'll admit, like that day after Election Day on campus at Michigan State, like you can see the Capitol with an eye view if you go up high enough on a parking garage. So it's very political on that campus, and it was, you could feel in the air just how devastated one half of the school was and how excited and jubilant the other side of the campus was. It was you know, it was something.
What's interesting about that is what you just illustrated, Monty, was folks who voted didn't get the outcome they wanted, and they were kind of discouraged. I would have thought that, and I'm wondering if that also could be a motivation for some folks too. I'm curious to know. You're a bit older than you're you've voted how many times in a presidential election?
This is my second presidential election. Yeah.
So there have been time. There was a 2020 election. Trump was up on the ballot again. There was another swelling of this. A lot of attention on this presidential election. I'm wondering though, shifting from one election to another based on the outcome, how does that change your motivation as a young person thinking about the future? Because it's not going to be your last election. It was just your first. You've got many elections to come.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point. And for someone who does believe in democracy, I think that's how I see it. How I see it is like we have to run candidates that we know can win, like at the local level, at the state level. And it encourages me to look around me and see other young people that are civically engaged and how we can start shaping them up into the candidates that we want to see in Detroit City Council, as mayor, as governor, as state representative, as congresswoman or congressman. So for me, it does motivate me that it can't stop at voting. Voting is, to me, a first step, right? It's like one part of the process that we have to do to continue to make democracy work for us and also make this be a city and a state and a country that we want to live in. However, I think that is something that we have to be honest about as organizers, right? Or as people who push people to vote, is that voting is not the end all be all. Voting is a part of this civic engagement process where we still need you organizing. We need you going to lobby with us in Lansing. We need you just phone banking with us. And so it motivates me to pull people in and say, okay, you did that, but there's so much more that you can do. But I trust in democracy. And so I think there is still this, like, if I don't believe in democracy and I gave it a shot, now I really don't.
You're listening to The Metro on 101.9 WDET. I'm Kerry Jr. II. I'm speaking with three members of Gen Z who are involved in politics today to better understand how engaged they are and what they want for their future in Detroit. My guests are Imani Foster with 482 Forward, a coalition that supports education in Detroit, Jonathan Shepard, film marketing and journalism student at Wayne State University, and Cedric Huff, a policy manager at the Eastside Community Network. Cedric, did you have a point you wanted to follow up on?
Yes. I like to keep this like my little secret that many people already know if you went to school with me. Yesterday marked a year since I got the opportunity through working with the Michigan Democratic Party during last year's Kamala Harris versus President Trump presidential election to actually introduce Miss Harris to the school. And you know, I'm talking, we did it, the third election day was on the 5th. And I was out there from 6 a.m. To 10 p.m., you know, just encouraging people to vote and just picking the minds of the, you know, young voters, whether you're left or right, moderate, whatever the case may be. And I thought about myself up on that stage for the whole, to this day I still do, it still feels surreal. And I remember my feeling exactly, you know, on November 6th and going forward, you know, if I'm the one that got up on that stage, what would I look like? What would that mean if I lost my motivation to preserve democracy? You know, if I don't want to say the spokesperson, but if I'm up there, you know, representing democracy and, you know, my beliefs on that grand of a scale, if I give up, what does that say to the people who may have been inspired to get active politically, whether they believed in politics, whether they had institutional distrust, whether they were the most civically engaged individual before they saw me. What would it mean if I gave up? So that was my motivation, and it's still my motivation today, because democracy is only as strong as the people who are supposed to be in power choose to exercise their right to democracy before it's taken away.
I'm curious to know what you all's conversations are with your peers when you talk about politics. How often do you do it? And when you do, what do you discuss? I want to go to Jonathan here.
Yeah, so I don't really hear politics. I hear problems. And okay. And all the time, everybody has a complaint of some sort, and they want the problem fixed, but undermine the politics of it. And I feel like that's the main problem. We want something fixed, but we don't know how to do so. And once we jump over that barrier, over that barrier of that information gap, we understand what individuals align with our benefits. That's when I believe we'll start to see a more increase of young adults going to the polls.
Do you bring that point to them in those conversations? Do you say, hey, I hear you've got problems, this is how we start solving them? And then how does that conversation play out?
So definitely. And once again, that's one of the reasons why we started with the South End podcast and started on politics again, is because it's a overwhelming amount of information out there as well to be binded on scouring the internet to figure out all these problems and all these different policies that different candidates or people plan to fix. It gets exhausting, but yeah, that's the reason why we started it. And these not instructions to how things get fixed, but almost like these proposals are things that I believe that people should be going towards. And once again, doing the more information gathering yourself. And that's one of the other things that I believe we're seeing an increase now, is people are becoming more politically aware and are more scourging the internet for information. I believe that we see so much disinformation so much is because people are scavenging for information in general. So I do believe that more and more people are looking for information or are aware and willing to learn more. It's just about, are we learning the right stuff and going about it the right way from correct publications.
I want to hear Imani and Cedric from you two about the conversations you all are having with people. And I'm curious, I'm going to add a little extra point to this, or tail to the question, about the types of perspective you're engaging with. Who are you having conversations with? Do they have opposing views to yours politically? And what are those conversations like when it comes to engaging in politics?
Yeah. I want to start with so I got married 2 years ago, and when I married my husband, he had never voted before. Never felt like politics were important. He's actually older than me. So, I had been voting when I met him. And, we talked about it. Like, why don't you think it's important to vote? Why don't you think that all these different systems also impact you? And I'm proud to say that last year was his first election ever voting, and he was proud to vote, and everyone clapped for him in the precinct.
What turned him?
Honestly, the fact that last year's election was so central, I think, to our lives and thinking about all of the things that were in Project 2025 directly impacted us. We fight for education justice every day. How could I not take this one stand to fight against someone who believes we shouldn't have a Department of Education? And I think the conversation really was this 10 minutes out of one day on a Tuesday, has a real big impact. And so I think putting it into perspective of this is how politics impacts you. And also the ask is not huge, right? We just want you to go out and exercise your duty, something that people fought for us to have a right to. And so I think it was a little bit about the perspective and also the importance of, again, politics will do us if we don't do them. And so it was kind of that conversation. But in general, I agree that I hear problems. And people kind of know me as I'm the social justice friend. Oh, you already know what she gonna say. But always do I try to bring it back to there are meetings that we can go to, even if we want to talk about the school system alone, right? People complain about the school board, the school system all the time. I always ask them, have you ever been to a school board meeting? Because you have 3 minutes to make public comment to the entire school board. Have you ever emailed the superintendent? because I did when I was 17 years old, and he emailed me back the same day in about 20 minutes. And so when I can also show people how my engagement in the political process has changed things, when I show them wins that we've made because of elections, because of advocacy, because of knowing the people that we elected. It's important to not just elect people, but you should know your city council person. You should want to know more about your mayor. You should know about police commissioners. And so I think my conversation kind of revolves around like, how can we make politics personal to you, even if you don't care about it at the, federal level? Do you care about state politics? What about the city, right? And like, how can I get you engaged in something that is important to you? So I kind of try to figure out the issue they care about and then connect them to, the people that they should be talking to, but also being realistic, right? We don't always win. And the more that I'm honest about that, I think the more that we can continue to build trust and like push forward.
Wow. So I'm going to go to break real quick. And when we come back, we'll discuss more of this because I want to get to some of your responses on the conversations you're having. But we'll also discuss the issues you three, Imani, Cedric, and Jonathan, find most important. So stay right there. We'll be right back on the Metro. Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Carrie Jr. II, and we're discussing how Gen Z assesses politics and voting today on Election Day. I'm joined by Imani Foster, who's the communications lead with 482 Forward. It's a coalition that supports education in Detroit. Jonathan Shepard is a film marketing and journalism student at Wayne State University, and Cedric Huff is a policy manager at the East Side Community Network. Now, before we went to break, we were talking about the conversations that you three were having with people about voting, what they're saying to you, why they don't vote or hesitant to vote or are hesitant to vote. And Cedric, you had a story or an anecdote that you wanted to share about.
Yes. I hope that everybody has that one person who kind of just meshes with their soul a little bit better than everybody else. That person that, you can talk about sports, philosophy, video games, life, everything with. And my best friend and I, we have many conversations about an array of the very same topics. And when we get to politics, it is probably the one discussion, other than whether Curry is better than LeBron or not, that we have a division about. And when we talk, I am all about the preservation of democracy and continuing to utilize it as our right as citizens in the United States of America. He speaks of revolution and abolishing the system and doing something completely different that is governed mainly by us, that is decided by us. No forefathers, no anything. Something similar to along the lines to communism, but he doesn't know that it's communism that he's speaking of. Yeah. And when I ask him, when I give him my knowledge as a political science student, studied it for 3.5 years at MSU, he kind of shuts me down and he says that it's all a scam and it's all rigged and, politics are a sham, it's fake, it's smoke and mirrors. And I tried to illustrate to him that he's kind of contributing to the very problem that he is against. And, I feel as though there are a good amount of people who are like that. This same best friend introduced me to a group of young individuals as well, ranging from ages of 17 up into 22, 23, and they share fairly similar values. They focus on civil rights groups that moved and, like the Black Panther Party and the other smaller parties that don't get as much publicity as the Black Panther Party, and how they moved and how they fought for revolution and how they sought equity, justice, and liberation from the systemic issues that plague our people to this very day. And there's more of a active, not necessarily violent, but hands-on approach that is desired to be taken by specifically this group of individuals. But I've also heard these perspectives amongst a few other people that I've met, because being Black is inherently political. And, I hear them mostly amongst my peers. They say, fight the system. Don't just vote. Voting isn't enough. Voting is a component of it, but there's more that needs to be done.
Okay, so they do believe that voting is a part of it, though, whereas your friend did not.
Yes, some of them do. My friend is against voting and participating in politics, but the other group that I've met, mainly at Michigan State University, they believe in, voting being like the one piece of the pie of many other slices, if you will.
I see. Okay. So
being black is inherently political. I'm still in that. I'm still in that.
That is definitely a common phrase I've heard a lot of. So what I want to change to now are some of the issues that are important to you all as Gen Z. And of course, local election, mayoral race here. Detroit has undergone an evolution of sorts, in the time since city officials declared bankruptcy over a decade ago. There are some tangible improvements in the city services in that time, notable change in development in the city as well. But there are also very notable criticisms of that development and that there's not enough being done in the neighborhoods. I'm curious where you all sit in that. I'm going to start with Jonathan. You're in the metro area. You know and have witnessed it. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are just about that development as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the development, one of the most pressuring issues that we hear, along with the job market, is affordable housing and being able to keep up with increasing rent prices. Along with that, like I said, the job market, these are problems that specifically graduate students that are in the Detroit area are facing and are at risk of just leaving the area in general. We see it all the time. I mean, if we take a look at some of the rent prices alone, I mean, about 50 to 56% of renters in Detroit, household incomes are under $35,000 a year. And the Detroit Free Press reports that half the renters struggle to pay rent, with 30% of the income going towards it alone. And these are just barriers that a lot of people cannot financially afford to be able to hurdle over. And yeah, like I said a couple minutes ago, what we hear the most is problems and not politics. And once we start to understand what's all going on and understand the policies and procedures to be able to fix these things, is when I think we'll be able to see real change. Yeah. But it all starts with voting and going out to the polls.
Imani, what's your response to the developments? What's your opinion? And I want to keep this brief. We've got a little under 10 minutes, so I still want to get to actual issues.
Cool. Okay, yeah. So just around like developments downtown versus neighborhood.
Yeah.
I really appreciate what you just said about just the importance of affordable housing, especially coming out of college. I think if we say we want more people to be in Detroit, we have to make it affordable to live here. I just saw a post on Instagram the other day about new high-rises built on Woodward that were $2,300 for a one-bedroom.
That's ridiculous.
And it's insane when, the API is what it is in Detroit. So I definitely think affordable housing. I also just think in general, sometimes I'll see the city of Detroit make these posts that's like, they say we're not in the neighborhoods. Look at us in this one neighborhood. Yeah. And that's not the point. Like, we saw y'all redo Livernois. Okay, thank you. We remember the streetlights. Okay, thank you. But when I say invest in the neighborhoods, I mean invest in the people in the neighborhoods to be able to sustain whatever investment that you put into it. And that means, like, Black clubs are important. We need to be investing more in Black clubs and allowing for them to start building the plans for their communities and just giving them the money. Because I trust my community to do what needs to be done in their communities. I trust my neighbors. I trust the people who have already committed themselves to having some kind of governance in our community to make the decisions that we need. But I think, honestly, a lot of times we do focus on downtown, midtown. Now we're about to have this weird beach thing downtown. We've got the Q line. We got all these things. And yet and still, we have so many homeless families, so many hungry families, so many families that don't go to school in the neighborhood that they live in because there's no good options. It's not a walkable neighborhood. They just found a body covered in debris in an alley yesterday. This is reality. I have a student. She attends our church. And when a young man, unfortunately, was shot on the Detroit City bus this year, she was sitting across from him because she was on her way to school. And she's now forever traumatized by seeing someone shot right in front of her. So it's not just about investing in things that are cute and making things look nice. It's about investing in communities so that we can sustain ourselves instead of feeling like we always have to wait on the top to do the investing.
Cedric, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it quick, but this is something that since I've gotten in Detroit and got the opportunity and the privilege to work on the East Side, I've become very passionate about. Do not get me wrong, I love how beautiful downtown looks. 5 years ago, the city did not look like how it looks now. I love my Pistons, I love my Lions, absolutely adore my Tigers. Hell, I even like the Red Wings. I've never watched a hockey game in my life. Love my Red Wings, but driving from downtown to Midtown, hopping on, I want to say, don't quote me, I-94, I-96, whatever highway I take to get to, work. And then I drive around the neighborhoods. I pick people up, drop them off to come to our facility to participate in some of the things that we're doing. And I feel this pit of almost guilt. And it's not even myself who orchestrated everything that we see down there. The amount of blighted homes, the amount of vacant lots, this land could be used to, plant greenery that could, dilute pollution that is seen going through the neighborhoods. Like we are at ECN, we are focusing on trying to aid in getting a truck ordinance passed, mainly in District 4, but also in Ms. Santiago Romero's district, it's District 6.
I don't have the district in front of me.
That's District 6.
Okay, yeah, District 6,
Producers will clarify if we need to.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's dealing with these trucks going out in neighborhoods, and it's causing pollution that's going to affect people that live there.
Because we have less than 5 minutes, I just want to know what would be the main thing you want the next leader of the city to focus on?
Implement an entertainment tax. To put this information, I get this from my boss, Donna Givens-Davidson. Shout out to her. But to implement entertainment tax, because like I said, the sports teams that I mentioned, all of the great things that happen in the city of Detroit, if there is a tax on these things and on these events, concerts as well, and if this money is reinvested into the neighborhoods, we could see some movement towards change and bringing forth affordable housing for lower to moderate income families, so that they don't have to be on the street, so that they don't have to squat or break into vacant homes to live there, just so that their kids don't get assaulted or anything happens to the mother or the child, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's a very harsh reality that we see, and it's inequitable. It's unacceptable. It's awful.
Okay, so you support the ticket tax. The Citizens Research Council did a study on it to see how much money we would make from that as well, taxing the tickets on performance venues.
Do you have a figure on that?
The figure is not in front of me right now. Maybe my producer can get it, but I remember it being somewhere up near like the 500 million. It wasn't a significant amount, but it was a smaller portion of the budget itself.
And the fraction of that would change lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there one for you, Jonathan? A focus that you want the next leader of the city to hit on? We've got 2 minutes left. So
I'll keep mine. I keep mine pretty short. But it's really just fixing the job market we're in right now. It's incredibly hard for individuals to be able to get into the job market right now, and as soon as we're able to fix that, I would go more and more. But I think we're low on time. But yeah, we got to find some way to incentivize or give incentives to small businesses or corporations around Detroit to be able to hire and keep Detroit natives, so we don't see any talent of flight.
That makes sense. I mean, you want to work here long term once you finish school. Correction on myself per Citizens Research Council, it's 14 to 47 million.
Okay.
That makes more sense. It's a smaller number.
That's still useful.
It's useful. It is useful.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then for you, Imani, what's the big issue
I also
for you?
won't take long, because I actually have an op-ed in Bridge Detroit that everyone can go check out, where I talk about this a lot. But I think it's very imperative that the next mayor that we have see themselves as the only person who's responsible for governing, the 100,000-ish young people that are in Detroit. Our education system is completely fractured. We don't have just one school district in Detroit. We have about 60. Who's responsible for all of these students? Because we have a superintendent of our biggest public school district and then a bunch of smaller districts of charter schools. What's happened because of this fracture is that our students don't get what they need. I think the next mayor needs to not be able to say, my hands are tied because I don't govern schools, but instead be creative, be bold, and create systems that connect our school systems with the city so that there are no gaps when it comes to homelessness, right? And kids, unfortunately, passing away in a car when they go to school every day. So how is a school not connected to a homeless shelter? Like, these are things that we can fix, but the mayor has to feel like schools are also their problem as well.
If there's one more thing I can touch on, I know it's not directly the mayor's
I give you 15 seconds.
initiative, but Detroit still has the highest car insurance rate in the nation. Pairing that up with the young individual's age and none too weak credit history, it makes an incredible barrier to be able to afford a car, especially in Detroit. So that's one more issue I believe we need to be fixed as well.
All right, Cedric, Jonathan, and Imani, thank you all three so much for joining us this morning and talking about local politics. Everyone wants to talk about national politics, but mayors, governors, all those people matter too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Coming up, with funding for SNAP benefits still up there, community organizations are stepping up to fill the gap and feed people. We hear from Bass Blue, located right here in Midtown, next on the Metro.